Hello and welcome to the wonderful world of algebra. Now, a lot of people say to me I can do really complicated sums, lots of long multiplication, long division, but I don't understand what all these x's and y's are all about. I don't understand that. It just confuses me. And one of those people is my mum. So in this video and the next few videos that I'm going to do, hopefully it is not as difficult as you think. Not as complicated as you first think, and actually it can be quite enjoyable. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hopefully drip feed it so it's nice and simple to begin with, just so we can build a solid foundation for when we do move on to slightly trickier topics. Now before we go any further, let's just remind ourselves of some basic arithmetic. So let's say we wanted to work out 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4. Now if you were to do this as I've written it out, 4 plus 4 is 8, 8 plus 4 is 12, 12 plus 4 is 16, 16 plus 4 gives us 20. So we know our answer is 20, but what is a quicker way of working this out? Well, hopefully you've identified that we've got 5 4s being added together, so instead of doing 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4, we could just do 5 times 4. There are 5 4s being added together. So if we do 5 times 4, that also gives us 20. Now, let's say I go to the greengrocers and I want to buy 3 apples, but I don't know the cost of each apple. So how could I write that down as a statement? Well, I can't write down a number because I don't know the cost of the apple. So instead of writing down a number, I'm going to write down the letter A. And you can probably see why I've chosen the letter A. So A just represents the cost of an apple. So if I'm buying 3 apples, I could write down A plus A plus A. Now let's say I take the apples to the checkout and the cashier rings them up on his till and he says, okay, that's going to cost you 90 pence. So now I know that these 3 apples when added together equal 90 pence. And now I know the total price of those 3 apples. I can work out what each apple costs. So if these 3 apples cost 90 pence, then one apple on its own is going to cost 30 pence, because 3 times 30 is 90. And this is basically what algebra is all about. It's about calculating unknown values. Now a moment ago I said we could write down 3 apples as A plus A plus A, but we can simplify that slightly. So if you look over here in this orange box here, I wrote down 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4, but another way of writing that down is 5 times 4. So think about how else I could write down A plus A plus A. And hopefully you spotted that A plus A plus A is exactly the same as 3 times A. And in algebra, we generally don't write the multiplication symbol. All we do is we put the number and the letter next to each other. So 3 times A is exactly the same as 3A. All we do is we get rid of that multiplication symbol. Now you may be wondering, why do we get rid of this multiplication symbol? And I'm going to show you with an example. Now let's say we want to buy some Xboxes and we don't know the cost of the Xbox to begin with. So I'm just going to use the letter X to represent the cost of an Xbox. And let's say we're really greedy and we want to buy 4 Xboxes. So how could we write that down as a statement? Now, just like up here, we could write down X plus X plus X plus X. So we've got 4 Xboxes. But hopefully you know by now that we don't write it down like this. We can simplify it. So we could write down 4 times X. Now, hopefully something has leaped out at you and you can see a problem with this statement here. Now, to me, this looks like 4xx. Or you could say 4 times times. This doesn't really look very appealing, or it looks very confusing to me. So that is why we get rid of this middle multiplication symbol. So instead of writing 4 times x, we would simply write 4x. And in algebra, we tend to use the letter x quite frequently. So this is why one of the main reasons why we don't use the multiplication symbol, because it can get very confusing. Now, just to finish off with on this video, I just want to go through some mathematical language that we use in algebra. So far, I've been referring to these as letters. So these A's and X's that I've used to represent the apples and the Xboxes, I've just called them letters. Now in algebra, we don't use the word letter. We use the word variable. And the reason why we use this word variable is because it varies. It changes depending on the context. So for example, in this example here, our apples were 30p. But that might not always be the case. You might go to another greengrocer and they may charge you 40p. So it all depends on the context. So that's why we call them variables. They vary. So if the letters are called variables, what are the numbers called? And you might think, well, they're just called numbers, and you would be right. But again, we have a mathematical word that we like to use to represent things that are just values, and that word is a constant. And the reason why this is called a constant is because it doesn't change. It is constant. So a 4, wherever you see a 4, it doesn't matter what scenario you see the number 4, you know that it is 4 of something. So it is not variable. It is constant. So we've got variables. So the letters, they're called variables because they change depending on the situation. And we've got the numbers, which we also refer to as constants. So hopefully this video just gave you a nice introduction to what algebra is all about. And the takeaway message from this is that algebra is just a branch of maths that deals with finding unknown values. And I'm going to do loads more videos on this topic. So hopefully by the end of this series of videos, you will be flying with algebra. I'll see you soon.